Don't mind my hair sticking up. I tried to put some water, brush it and whatnot, but unfortunately it's not working. It's not helping at all. So we're gonna stick with it with what we got. Either way, I want to talk about Yaiba Samurai Legend. This is an anime to more or less going to be concluding by the end of this week as of me recording this video. And it's an anime that came out back in the spring 2025 season. And I want to talk about it because, again, if you remember when I was talking about my Gacha Kuta video from not too long ago, this was one of the shows that I wish I made a halfway point review on to just break down what has happened with the show so far and get full context out of the way and make it easier for the final overall result. But in this one, I'm still going to talk about it regardless of everything that has happened up to this point and give you my thoughts and feelings of how I feel about the show more or less. You also have to keep in mind that this anime was not the first time this show actually got adapted as of right now. The first time this show actually got adapted was back in 1993 under the title Legendary Brave Swordsman Yaiba, which, again, given that this came out back in 1993, this was a little bit before a lot of the big shonen shows were still popping off up to this point. And also, I mean, at the time, if you know what came out during the 90s, one of the biggest shows to come out during that time was shows like Yu Yu Hakusho and even like the Dragon Ball Z franchise still popping off at that time. And if you instantly recognize the art style from this poster alone, you may know that this is the same author who not only created Yaiba Samurai Legend, but this author is known for creating the longest running anime as of right now, one of the longest running animes, with Detective Conan or Case Closed. And this show is still ongoing since 1996 to this day. And this is the same author that gave us this show. So you have that highlight right here and there with what we have with the Yaiba anime, right? But not only is Yaiba Samurai Legend like another readaptation of a show from way long ago that's being readapted, going getting the modern treatment that it deserves, but it is following the same lines of like what happened with Ranma One Half recently, or Urusei Yatsura, or even the likes of Fruits Baskets getting its final readaptation completed. So given like the history of what we have here, I definitely went to Yaiba Samurai Legend with not a lot of high hopes, honestly, because I wasn't familiar with this franchise. I wasn't sure of it. The only thing I know about this was that this is by the author of Detective Conan, and I wanted to see what the show has to offer. And again, I can comfortably say that the first half of the show is definitely a bit of a slow burner, but once we get to the second half of the show up until the finale, which I think is honestly going to allude to like a potential second season at the moment, I think Yaiba Samurai Legend is definitely a really good anime. It's definitely not perfect at the end of the day because, again, some of the humor, some of the action may not be suitable for everybody at the end of the day, and there are moments where some of it is like kind of stuck in the past, and a lot of it is kind of like dead to rights and dead obvious. Like they didn't like give it like a full modern treatment, like brush up. But with that being said, the animation of the show is fire. The voice acting of the show is crisp, is passionate. I will comfortably say that the second half of the show brings out a lot of its A game way more than the first half. I will admit, and again, this is under Wit Studios, so if you know Wit Studios and what they're known for at this point, I don't think we need to really explain ourselves even further given how great this studio has been as of late. But again, the story is about as simplistic as old as time that you probably heard of from numerous types of shows in this vein, where you have our main protagonist Yaiba Kuragane, who one day wants to be the greatest swordsmith samurai in the world. And of course, he fights everyone and anything, and one day he come across his what will soon become his main rival with Takahashi Fujin Onimaru. And Onimaru has been a gifted student in his school, and he basically is like the head of his swordsmith class of his school. And more or less, after he suffered a humiliating loss against Yaiba, he vowed to take revenge on Yaiba by any means necessary, given that he somehow proved to be stronger than Onimaru was. And one day he come across a mysterious sword with a mysterious orb inside, and with that, he conjures the power to become an Oni himself. And with the power that he got in, he not only takes up the real sword and potentially almost killed Yaiba, but essentially outpowered Yaiba in every way, shape, or form, which then causes Yaiba to, after suffering through a huge loss, makes a vow to make sure that Onimaru gets defeated one way or another. Because after Onimaru defeats Yaiba, he feels like there's no one that can defeat him at once and for all, and he starts to take over the world main villain style. Which again, I think progression story wise, when you watch like the first few episodes of this show, is a bit much. Is a bit like progressing way too fast. I get that, but honestly, this feels like classic like shonen anime of back in the day, in my view. Like, it's fine. It's nothing too crazy to really talk about. Again, I understand that maybe this could be one of the criticisms about the show is that is the progression is way too fast for it to progress to the story. But I think it's really good. I think it's endearing. And throughout these 12 episodes, we see that Yaiba comes across other big characters in the show, like Kojo Sasaki to Musashi Miyamoto, who's essentially going to be Yaiba's master and mentor throughout the whole show. And we see like throughout the journey, Yaiba comes across like some really cool characters here, which I'm not going to display all at once in this video because it's a lot to dive in with each character at the end of the day. But every character that Yaiba comes across, it progresses him to one step closer to being Onimaru. And then after the halfway point where we get to see Yaiba and Onimaru finally confront each other and try to see who's going to be on top, we come to find out that not only did it end where Onimaru and Yaiba is at a draw, but now there is now a big rumor and a big realization that wait, the two orbs that they have, which was the wind and the thunder orbs that they have respectfully, are not the actual orbs they gotta focus on. There are other orbs out there that Yaiba needs to find in order to be Onimaru. And the last 12 episodes essentially boils down to that, where now with Yaiba, Sayaka, and everyone in company, basically they go on this journey to find all the other elemental orbs so that they can use it all to defeat Onimaru once and for all. Which again is more or less what you see and what you've heard from other stories to come out since then, obviously, but done way better than this show, sadly. But I will say the second half of this show, like I said, gets a lot better, progresses a lot more smoother. I think the trials and tribulations of Yaiba and company finding these orbs and doing everything he can so that he can use it to beat Onimaru is freaking amazing. It's really good. I even like to shout like some of the side characters that I like from Jubei to God, I can't pronounce it, but Jubei, this character, easily one of the best characters of the show. His design is so badass. Like it's kind of crazy that he was actually the mentor of this bad boy right here. There's also Nadeshiko Yamato who has this huge reception over Yaiba, and he has like a really she has a really cool character design, and probably the best waifu of this this anime in my opinion. And even like side characters like the Frogman himself, where again, while maybe not as endearing and as memorable like all the other characters I mentioned up until this point, he does have some role to play to a degree. And as of right now, the show is ending on a bit of a cliffhanger where we're now, after all the trials and tribulations that these two have been through and every character in the show has been through, we get introduced to a brand new out of nowhere character with Kaguya Hime, who pretty much is now the real villain of the whole show, and is going to showcase what she wants to do, what her ambitions are. Which again, we don't know yet. I don't even know yet as of me recording this video, but I think it's safe to say that with her introduction and how these two were able to end on such a high cliffhanger note of like, holy shit, they give us some of the best fight sequences that the show has to offer. I again comfortably can say that I think a second season is most likely going to be around the corner sometime in the near future. Because again, this show has a lot of passion clearly put into this. There's a lot of forethought. The music in the show is fire. The themes, the action, the progression, said story is simple, but it's also really clean at the end of the day. But I can also see the argument that hey, at the end of the day, this is unfortunately like a really old story from the past. Why would anyone want to check this out? And I get it. There are some things to talk about with a show of this caliber, and I do agree with those complaints. But I think this is a show that you should probably at least give a shot, in my opinion, because again, we have seen like some really dismal, disappointing shows in this vein that came out, get a re-adaptation for the modern day treatment, and it fails so miserably. Case in point, if I'm gonna pop up one that I definitely remember pretty infamously, Shaman King. If anyone remembered Shaman King from back in 2021, this show, from what I've heard, was adapted so poorly for the modern anime adaptation that the original Shaman King is still viewed as a huge classic for a reason. And again, I haven't heard about Shaman King. I haven't watched the show, admittedly, as you can see, but I know how infamously disappointing this show was when it came out. But in the case of the Yaiba anime, I don't see that at all. I think the show really is simplistic. It is good. This has a lot of passion and forethought put into the show, and I think that in the modern day and age, I think this is going to survive in the long haul. So, again, I think that this to me is, in my view, an underrated anime to come out of this year, and I'll simply leave it at that. So, as of right now, and given that the final episode is going to be airing this week, I'm feeling like a strong seven on this thing. It's really good. It has a lot of potential to being like really amazing, but at the end of the day, there are some low points that doesn't make it push it forward to being like, yeah, this is like amazing, and I absolutely get like gush over Grannies over this show. You know what I mean? But overall, this is still a huge, great show that I think is pretty underrated for the anime of 2025. And yeah, just want to talk about this a little bit and yeah, that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Later.